News Radio 1000 KTOK. I'm Gwin Faulconer-Lippert. Special guests are here with me in studio this evening, and I know you are familiar with the Oklahomans for Responsible Transportation. One of their most wonderful sources of information is on Facebook and YouTube, and it's referred to as No More Turnpikes. So after doing a little sleuthing on my own and with the help of Randy Carter, I found Dave Moore, who is a certified information systems security professional. He has Dave Moore Computers, which is an internet safety group in Norman, and he does all kinds of teaching and consulting about security on the internet. And sometime we will talk about that. He is also a weekly columnist at the Norman Transcript and has several websites. But tonight he is here because of my concern, and I hope your concern, about the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority and the program that they are calling Access Oklahoma. And I know, Dave, you probably laugh when I say Excess Oklahoma, and how I've gotten away with that, I don't know.
Because you coined an excellent phrase right there.
Well, thank you very much.
Good job.
Thank you. I truly am concerned, and I was concerned first because I know many people. I knew Stan Ward from my years at OU, and they had these wonderful places they lived and developed, and I remembered, when the Eastern Loop was being discussed way back when, and then Neil McCaleb, rest his soul, said, the people of Norman don't want this. We're not going to do it.
Right.
And we thought it was over.
And where are the Neil McCalebs of today? They're hiding, apparently. And
or they don't seem to be bound by law. That's what gets me crazy.
Well, and
Access
Sure.
Oklahoma is a program to add more turnpikes, which means paid roads you must pay to drive on.
Toll roads. Whether
you want to or not. And if you've been keeping up with Randy Carter, and I've been doing this for 2 years, I think, what happened to the Gilcrease Turnpike, and those people were told they were going to be able to drive free, and surprise, no. And the Kickapoo Turnpike, and I got involved with this a little bit the first time it came around, and I thought it was over. And then when it came back around again, I just couldn't believe it. And then as Tassie Hirschfeld and the Oklahomans for Responsible Transportation and this incredible volunteer group of which you are a part of are taking on the Oklahoma Department of Transportation and the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, I just think they don't know who they're dealing with, do they? And it makes me very happy that maybe they don't know.
Yes. Well, for centuries, people, crooks would set up shop on roads, and they would hold you up for money, and they were called toll roads. And that's where the phrase highway robbery came from.
Oh, my goodness.
And even I remember listening to grandparents in Oklahoma talk about how people would do that around the Tulsa area.
Yes.
And the Cushing and the towns around there. You'd be driving down the road, and all of a sudden you'd have to stop because a bunch of crooks have blocked the road. And if you pay them some money, they would let you go on your way.
Well, and it's not that we don't appreciate some turnpikes.
Well, we all like good roads. I mean,
thank you.
Heck yeah.
Yes.
Who doesn't? But the way that they're financed now is just, it's a big scam. And I've thought a lot about this subject. What is the core subject that we're dealing with here?
What is the core subject?
It's corruption. And I brought some books with me.
I heard greed was part of that.
Well, because a lot of people have made allegations. Oh, the OTA is corrupt. The Turnpike guys are corrupt. They're corrupt. Well, if the Turnpike Authority is corrupt, by definition of the term, that means that also the people at the state capitol are corrupt. maybe the governor's office, senators, representatives. It means also that people in the business community are corrupt, because the OTA couldn't just be all corrupt all by their own little self-contained entity. They have to have all of this support structure going.
Well, and the Supreme Court, Oklahoma Supreme Court, gave them carte blanche.
Well, I brought a book with me.
Oh, good.
Called Justice for Sale. A lot of people don't know this. The shocking scandal of the Oklahoma Supreme Court.
I do know this because of my Oklahoma Gold series, and we did a story about that.
And so back in the 60s, a couple of Supreme Court justices were found guilty of corruption and bribery. And so, and a lot of people have said, oh, because they made a decision against us, basically supporting the OTA, giving them carte blanche to build their roads. And some people have made the allegation, well, the Supreme Court is corrupt. And you can't believe the blowback you get when you say something like, how can you say that? The Supreme Court is the law of the land. They're the best people.
Of Oklahoma.
There's history, brother, to back that statement up. Okay.
Yes.
It's happened before.
And the county commissioners. I mean, there's lots of corruptness that has happened. Oh, you brought that one
this
too.
Book. It's called Bad Times for Good Old Boys by Harry Holloway. This book is rare now. Of course, it's out of print, but I was at a city council meeting in Norman, decades ago. And the city council people were whining about, we've got to get trust back from the people. The people don't trust the city council. We need to have trust. Well, I got up and commented, and I said, politicians are never to be trusted, ever. I'm old enough to remember the over 200 county commissioners and business people that were indicted and convicted of bribery and corruption back in the 80s. I remember that.
Oh, but then they say, oh, no, that was just Gene Stipe.
No, it was 200 people plus. And so there is precedent for not trusting politicians.
Yes.
And by the way, online to buy a copy of this, they start at $75 and go up to about $150 a copy. But our local libraries have this book. Oh. I got this one from the library and more. And so I suggest that whoever wants to learn more about that, go check that book out. But because it's very revealing and I think is helpful to people.
Because we are talking about the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. And once upon a time, there were procedural laws that they had to get things approved before they could build roads. Now, after doing a couple of years with Randy Carter and Tassie Hirschfeld, I have learned that the Kickapoo Turnpike was never approved by the legislature.
It wasn't. They just decided they were going to do it, and they just hauled off and did it, and nobody said a word except for the people from there.
Yes, nobody is
saying
much now. It's
a done deal. What are you going to do? Go tear it up?
Well, but they still have drainage problems. They, according to them, they haven't paid everyone what they're due. And here, wait, this is all over the map. I'm sorry, but here's one of the things. This Access Oklahoma program. They're going to turn Indian Hills Road into a turnpike, east-west connector turnpike. Okay.
They would like to.
Yes. They want to have a north-south connector that will damage the Lake Thunderbird watershed. And, what about the Rose Rock Sanctuary? What about all these other things?
Oh, those are just little trifling things because we're talking about progress here, Gwen. It's the price of progress. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that from people. Oh, it's the price of progress.
But the Turnpike Authority made the mistake of putting 3 huge projects on the drawing board through Cleveland County.
Right, in Norman. And we have a reputation in Norman for not putting up with that sort of nonsense. We fought it in the 90s, and here we are fighting it again. Essentially the same ideas, the same plans. They also made a real mistake when they actually drew lines on a map.
Yes.
Which, by the way, their engineers have admitted to me personally, I had sent an interview, you can watch it online, that they used Google Maps to come up with the engineering for drawing the initial routes.
Google Maps?
Google Maps. Yeah.
And why did they use Google Maps?
Well, normally if you're going to engineer a road of any size, you seen guys out in the field with their transit and their,
they're
their
supposed to do
instruments.
environmental studies.
Oh, all kinds of studies, yes. But they just sat down with some Sharpies and got on Google Maps and started drawing lines on a map. And that's how they came up with what's online right now.
But more recently, I've come to appreciate from your Facebook pages and posts that the Native Americans don't want a turnpike through their burial lands or their sacred lands or anything. So putting a turnpike east of Lake Thunderbird is not going to work either.
They're not going to have it. It just ain't going to happen. I mean, a lot of people back in the 90s, I got a crash course in in tribes and the way they interface with the U.S. government from the Kickapoos, who were very friendly and helped me learn a lot. But they're treated as sovereign nations, and you just don't say, well, let's put it over here. You go and you ask permission first. They didn't even bring up the idea to the tribal leaders out there. They just said, hey, let's put it over there. And this is going to sound terrible, but they basically said, let's get it away from where all the white people in Norman live. Let's get it out where the Indians are. And the Indians don't take kindly to that sort of thing.
No, they don't. Dave Moore is here with me in studio, and we are talking about the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority and the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. He does have some proposals that he would like to share with you of things that possibly can be done to remedy the situation. Let me say it that way. You're listening to 1000 KTOK. I'm Gwin Faulconer-Lippert. News Radio 1000 KTOK. I'm Gwin Faulconer-Lippert. Dave Moore is here with me in studio. We're talking about the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority, and he is with a volunteer group. They have a Facebook page and websites, and soon, this Friday, they're going to have a chili cook-off to raise money because they are volunteers. You know, I guess saving your house comes down to you do it yourself, right?
And I'm going to be bringing my best batch of cornbread pie. What's it called? Chili cornbread pie.
Chili cornbread pie.
Oh, is it good?
Oh, man. It's a contest, right?
Yeah. So
but
wish me
adults
well.
pay $15 and then they get to sample everything?
Oh, yeah. It's basically all you can eat chili and fixins, and it's a ton of fun.
So where do people go to find out more about the chili cook-off?
You can go to pikeoffota.com, and if you look at the very top of the page, there's a link there you can click on and learn more.
Okay. Do you have to buy your ticket before you get there, or can you just show up?
You can just show up.
Show up hungry.
Yeah.
What time does it start?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it goes till
7:30, I believe.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right, sounds great.
Yeah.
All right, so this group of volunteers in Norman have decided that the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority could be improved. And so with that in mind, Dave, I'm just going to turn it over to you. Why and how?
Well, the first thing a lot of people would tell you is the major improvement you can make is just to abolish the whole thing. That's what people will say. However, right now we're involved in great legislative efforts at the state capitol. Lots of bills have been proposed. We're hoping that some of ours will be heard and get their fair time. This one that I put together here is the first bill that anybody's written that actually puts real oversight on the OTA, because right now they have none, zero oversight.
And how is that even possible?
That
they have all this money.
The way they've explained
and they do
it,
all these things.
That's the way it's been for 50 years, and it's worked quite well, they will tell you.
Yes, and according to Tassie Hirschfeld, the cross-pledging vote never happened. And yet we've been told that is an ongoing thing. But please continue.
Right.
Yes.
Well, so this bill that I hope that someone at the Capitol will hear about this evening and be interested in sponsoring actually proposes public comment periods where the public can comment on what the OTA wants to do, if they want to build a new turnpike or not. It also creates a board called the Oklahoma Turnpike Board of Review. And that board would be made up of appointees from the capital and also appointees from the cities that would be affected. Like the mayor of Norman could appoint some people to be on this board. And the board will investigate all claims, look at everything possible, and they will actually make the decision as to whether the turnpike can be built, not the OTA.
Is there a board now?
No. Well, it's kind of, if you're familiar with the word nepotism, that's how it works at the OTA, because they have a board at, the OTA board of directors, and it's basically they approve their own projects. We have a project, let's take a vote. Yes, we vote yes to do our own project.
And then some of the people that benefit from these projects, because there's a lot of money in concrete and paving and all that.
There's massive amounts of money.
There's a lot of connections there, I'll say.
Yeah, that's a very nice way to put it. Connections.
I try to be diplomatic.
Connections under the table. Did you get my little envelope? Oh. Yeah.
Or there are people that used to be with the Turnpike Authority and now they're in private
Well,
businesses.
There are a lot of people that used to be with ODOT. DavidStreb would be one, who now runs the biggest engineering firm that the OTA pays. His firm has so far made millions and millions of dollars off of the Access Oklahoma project, and they haven't laid an inch of concrete. They've just done studies and engineering and design work. But
did they design the bucking bridges?
I don't know.
Because, they built one on the Kilpatrick, and then they built another one in Tulsa, and then they had to come back and redo the one on the Kilpatrick, and then they had to redo the one in Tulsa as well.
That I don't know, but the OTA does business with probably 20 or 30 different engineering firms, and they assign them different chores. You're going to be in charge of this 5 miles, and this 10 miles over here is going to be your chore, and you guys over here, you get to work on this part of it. And so they involve as many different companies as possible to spread the wealth, to spread the love, and the companies that make concrete and make asphalt, and the workers and the trucks and the cranes and the machinery that it takes to build a major highway is staggering. But it's sad that it costs the OTA about 3 times as much to lay a mile of highway as it costs the Oklahoma Department of Transportation.
And why is that?
Good question. We were the first people to start asking that question a couple of years ago, and you can't really get a straight answer out of them. And so we do our own research. We look stuff up because a lot of this stuff is public knowledge. You just have to read it and put it together. And that's been a very big challenge. But why is that? Why can't you explain in simple terms that anybody could understand why it costs you 3 times as much to build a mile of road as it should?
And so they're done by different groups. Do they say they're done by different groups to exacerbate the timeline? Or
you could theorize that. I mean, spread the love is what I call it. Because when you're talking about billions and billions and even more billions of dollars, there's a lot of love to spread around. For example, the turnpikes that would be built in Norman, after paying for the bonds and the interest and servicing the bonds and the debt, would cost almost $18 billion just for the roads in Norman.
Which is another whole story because they're holding Norman hostage.
They are.
Because there are a few leaders in Norman that don't just do what the Turnpike Authority wants them to do. And so
fortunately,
we can talk about that. But we'll talk more about this bill that Dave Moore would like to see considered at the state capitol. And hopefully you will take note. I'm Gwin Faulconer-Lippert. You're listening 1000 KTOK. News Radio 1000 KTOK. I'm Gwin Faulconer-Lippert. Dave Moore is here with me in studio. He is with Pike Off OTA, No More Turnpikes, and has a YouTube channel where he also does podcasts, telecasts, and all those things about the ongoing projects that the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority is trying to slip past Oklahomans. They want you to pay a toll. And Dave, before we launch off on this proposal you have, I think one of the things that might get people's attention is all of a sudden now, their toll is even more money than it was.
Oh, boy, does that get people upset.
And do we just say, oh, okay.
Yeah, we do.
Well, and that plate pay is almost double. Or it is double.
I have a plate pay bill sitting on my desk right now, and it's like, I'd forgotten all about it. And I'm like, oh, no.
You're not going to be able to get a tag, mister.
Next, they're going to fine me $50 for a $3 bill.
Yep, they are.
But see, yeah, what gets people motivated is money. There are two things that motivate people is fear and love.
Yes.
And you can have the fear of with money involved and love with money involved. The thing that I remember back in the 90s when people were first confronted with the idea that a state agency would come take your home away from you, that you had built with your family for 50, 100 years. Some people have lived on that land out there.
And this is true today.
Oh, it is. And they just couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. This is like the stuff you see in movies. So there's a quote from this book, Bad Times for Good Old Boys, that struck me, and it said, "The exposure of so much criminality was distressing and perplexing." And he's talking about what they went through just writing and researching this book. The so much criminality was distressing and perplexing. The search for answers to the questions raised by the situation promised to be arduous and time-consuming.
Yes.
And there are a lot of people right now, and they don't know what tomorrow's going to be like. They don't know, should I fix the fence or should I just let it fall down?
Well, and one of the things, if you go to the No More Turnpikes Facebook page, there are pictures of signs that it's illegal for turnpike engineers to come on your property without your permission. Is that true?
Yes, it is. If you give them notice, if you tell them. Now,
so you can post one of your signs that says, don't come on my property without my permission. And that's notice, correct?
Yeah, that is notice. And a lot of people have actually gone a lot farther and actually told them verbally where they can't go. You can go somewhere else, but you can't come here. And
and is that effective? Do we think that you really can stop the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority from excess Oklahoma?
If law is really going to be obeyed, and if we're going to live in a country of laws, we have to win. There's no other way, because too many illegal things have happened. Too many illegal things are still happening. And people are getting to the point to where, you know, what are the 5 stages of grief that you go through? Denial and anger, all of this stuff. And most people have gone through they're at the stage 4 or stage 5 right now, to where they're thinking. They've grieved, they've cried, they've yelled, and now they're thinking, and they're thinking with us. I mean, when it says 8,000 people are on the No More Turnpikes page, I'd say that number is small.
Well, you know, and I also think people need to realize that the turnpikes were promised that someday they would be paid off. They're never going to be paid off, because the debt and the interest on the bond and all that is going to be so large that if we keep building toll roads, your toll is just going to go up.
The toll roads, the entire system was supposed to be paid off in the year 2028, 3 years from now. And that would have happened if they had not started the Access Oklahoma program. But now that's out the window. That's not going to ever happen. To pay off what they have currently projected, it will take somewhere around 50 years. So you can just count on it never happening. But what can happen is that people are learning that people who never ever thought before that they would ever be politically involved in something are now they're standing up and they're saying no. And that's all you really have to do is say no. And now if you can say no with conviction and consistently say no, then we can get somewhere and we can do something, because what's happening right now is just wrong. They've been doing it for decades, fine. It's still wrong. To take people's property away from them without due process is wrong. To not give notice to people is wrong. And to not have any public oversight whatsoever over your agency is just wrong.
Well, one of the tools is eminent domain.
Mm-hmm.
And is there legislation in the works to maybe curtail eminent domain in Oklahoma?
Yes, eminent domain reform is desperately needed in this state, and it's been implemented in other states. Eminent domain, the way it was originally set up, was that the government was allowed to take a person's private property if there was no other way they could accomplish their purpose. Okay? They couldn't just swagger in and say, "Get out of the way, we're taking your place," which is what they do now. They had to show that there was no other way to accomplish this public need without taking your property. Now, that has become so totally perverted that it's turning into taking people's property for private needs.
Private needs? What do you mean?
Well, the OTA, here we go. Let's talk corruption. The OTA always buys more property than they need to build a turnpike, way more. And then they auction it off when the turnpike is built. They auction off the surplus, and it always ends up in the hands of developers who build like
neighborhoods,
On Q and McDonald's and Holiday Inn and all of these businesses you see springing up next to these turnpikes is because they bought the surplus property that OTA paid for before. And it's this big cycle that just goes over and over and over, rinse, wash, and repeat, or whatever, and it does. But that's how it is turned into this self-propagating, unsustainable machine, because it keeps doing the same things over and over and over, and it's like you can't keep piling on more debt on top of more debt, on top of more debt. Eventually, the house of cards is going to fall.
Dave Moore is here, and we are talking about the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. He has a YouTube channel and a Facebook page, No More Turnpikes, or pikeoffota.org. Pikeoffota.com. We'll tell you more about some of the things that are in the works when we come back.
Yeah.
You're listening to 1000 KTOK. I'm Gwin Faulconer-Lippert. News Radio 1000 KTOK. I'm Gwin Faulconer-Lippert. Access Oklahoma is the current turnpike plan to put 3 new turnpikes through Cleveland County. Now, that is in addition to, what are there, 13 total projects? I mean, 11 that were already done, and now they're adding these or whatever.
And there are only 3 turnpikes that actually make money in the whole state.
Yes.
The rest of them are in the red.
And we're adding on to those. So we're expanding those. Yeah, we're expanding those. So Dave Moore is part of a group called the Oklahomans for Responsible Transportation, or pikeoffota.com, or No More Turnpikes. And he has been hanging out at the state capitol so that the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority will have someone to answer to rather than just whatever they want to do. By law, they were supposed to get it all approved by the legislature and all that, and they've done some very creative thinking.
Thank you. Well, and Randy really encouraged me to write this because I had complained so bitterly about another bill that's currently being proposed about how it was a do-nothing bill and had no teeth in it. It had no enforcement powers. And I actually got to speak to some kind of high up on the totem pole people about that, and that's what I told them. And they said, well, you're right. And I said, it reminds me of other state agencies that are powerless, sort of like the Oklahoma Ethics Commission. They keep defunding them a little bit more every year. It reminds
Just
me
about the time they start to do something meaningful, they get defunded.
Well, see, if there are going to be laws disobeying laws is supposed to have a penalty attached. Well, there's no penalty attached to hardly any of the OTA laws that have been proposed. And so in the one that I put together, hopefully someone wants to run with it. Someone was supposed to run with it. I just don't know yet if they're going to. But
they were interested at some point.
They were interested.
And the Norman leadership has partly been supportive. Part of them have, part of them haven't.
Well, not everybody's known about it because it was kind of Randy and I kind of kept it under the covers until we knew whether or not this one person was going to run the bill or not. And we still don't know. And I'm sorry, guys, but this is how you're finding out about it.
Well, now, the bill had to be filed by this past week.
Well, there's a bill that was filed that could be modified to be this bill.
Okay.
There are also I didn't know this when we started, there are also what are called shell bills, where they file a name of something, but it really doesn't have anything in it, but it's in a bill, and so later you can put in whatever, and that's how you beat the deadline.
Yes.
Kind of weird, but that's the way it works. And so maybe it'll cut the mustard that way.
What do you think would get the greatest attention of those people not directly in line of a new turnpike, but possibly might have to use it someday?
We already know what that is, and that's raising the tolls. This state threw a fit when OTA announced they were going to raise the tolls. Everybody was talking about it. It was on the news all the time.
But they did it.
They did it because... yeah, people can complain about it, but at the end of the day, you realize you're powerless. You have no power. The state literally has the power over the OTA, but they won't use it. And that's because people at the Capitol are afraid of them. They're afraid of the power, the money, the connections, and so they don't want to, kill the goose that lays the golden eggs, right?
Yes.
And so they could exercise power over the OTA. They just never have before. But bills like this can pass and can be signed into law to where if the OTA breaks the law, then there are penalties attached. And they desperately want to avoid that at all costs because they're just used to doing what they want, where they want, when they want, any way they want.
So if someone asks you, are you just against progress?
No, I'm very much for progress, but what OTA does is regressive. It is anti-progress to base roadways on phony projections, and we can prove this. They just made up these traffic projections. They just made them up out of thin air and went to the people in charge of, like the bond authority and just said, hey, here's what we see. Here are our projections. Nobody ever questions it. I wrote a thing for Oklahoma City's biggest newspaper recently and submitted it. And they called me back and they said, we want to run the letter that you sent us, but we can't make the figures balance out that I had included. Mm-hmm. And I just said, do you fact check the OTA when they send you figures? No. Okay, then run the story. Come on.
So did they run it?
Yeah, they finally did.
They did. And did you get a response?
But they left some things out still because people just can't believe that state agencies and people in places of authority can do bad things. Now, I don't know why they can't believe it because we all know they can. When my family first moved to Oklahoma back in the 70s, I remember sitting in the living room with my mom and dad watching TV, and the governor of the state of Oklahoma is being led away in handcuffs to go to prison. That was David Hall. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, I looked at Mom and Dad and I said, where have we moved? They just arrested the governor of the state. So don't tell me it can't happen, because it has happened. And humans are humans. So, and that's why we have laws, is to restrict the behavior of humans, because we know we're not perfect and we're going to screw up. And so we have laws, they just need to be obeyed. But we need some new laws, because things like what the OTA has been getting away with, it's just been going on way too long.
So what's the best way for people to become involved?
Go to pikeoffota.com. You'll see a page there for volunteers. Sign up and volunteer. We need volunteers to do everything from make phone calls to write letters to put stamps on envelopes. And just get involved, and then you'll see what else you can get involved doing, because there's a ton of stuff to do. This is a lot of work.
And it's all volunteers.
It's all volunteers. And, suing the state of Oklahoma costs a crap ton of money. Okay, it just does. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times that's the only way you get results is in a court of law. So I have a figure that we're going to be doing some of that soon too.
Dave Moore, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Go to davemorecomputers.com and you'll see my email address and you'll see my phone number there, and you can just give me a call.
All right, there it is. And for those of you that would like to know, I came prepared. His phone number, may I give out your phone number? 405-919-9901. Dave at Dave Moore with 2 O's, computers.com. And I hope that you will come back and let us talk about internet safety sometime,
absolutely.
Because that's what your livelihood is all about, right? Teaching people how to be safe on the internet.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate
thanks.
you. And thanks for bringing your whole group, your fan club with you.
That's right.
I appreciate it more than you know.